welcome you to our session on Educator interviews presented by Sandra Rodriguez, the Director of Employee Relations for San Bernardino City Unified School District. This is an amazing opportunity for all of you to hear firsthand from an industry expert who is in the field and interviewing our candidates to find out what they're looking for in the interviews and to try to just get ahead of the game and learn best practices in teacher interviews or educator interviews, as I know that some of you may be looking for teacher positions, some counseling, some psychology, and so we'll touch on a little bit of that throughout our time together.
Thank you, Nori. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. This presentation is geared towards educators who are entering the profession, kind of your first job. Preparing for an educator interview is very different than preparing for a job interview at maybe a fast food or a retail store. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So your presenter. So Nori let you know that I serve in the San Bernardino City Unified School District as the Employee Relations Director. I've been in the field of education for the past 26 years, doing various jobs. So I started my career as a classified employee. I worked as an instructional tutor as a way to pay to go to college, and then became a teacher. So I was a special education teacher working with mild to moderate students in a special education setting through RSP. And then I became a high school administrator. I was a vice principal for about 3 years. And then I was a high school principal for 9 years. My most recent experience for the last 4 years, I've served as the Employee Relations Director, and I do assist with hiring. The bulk of my job has to do with employee discipline, labor negotiations, and labor relations, meaning that we're working on, part of my work has to do with negotiations of contracts, collective bargaining agreements, as well as looking at working conditions for our 4 bargaining units here in the district. We have teachers, classified unit members, school police, and our substitute teachers are also in a union. So we've broken up the interview process into 3 phases. So you have your pre-interview, the actual interview, and then your post-interview. And so it's important that you prepare each step, because you're looking at very different opportunities to excel. And so if you're not prepared, it's going to make your interview not run as smoothly as you might like. And you always want to show your best when you are going through an interview. So in the pre-interview, you want to make sure that you research the district, research the employer. You want to look at their vision, their mission. You want to look to see how big the district is. As a new hire, you're looking for what type of support, teacher induction program. How are you going to clear your credential? What kind of support do they give new teachers? Do they give you mentors? Are they giving you a laptop or an iPad? What kind of technology are they giving you? So you're going to want to research the district to see what kind of resources they have available. When you look through their website, you're always going to want to look at about the district. So the size of the district matters. Smaller districts may not have as many advantages as larger districts. Larger districts also present some challenges, but you're looking for fit. You want to make sure that you are applying to a district that kind of is where you want to be, where you want to teach, where you want to serve. As we look at teaching and counseling and psychology and the different positions in education, we serve, it's a vocation, it's not a job. And so you want to make sure that you are matching your skill set with the district that has that same desire to educate all children. So it's important for you to do your homework on the district. Have copies of your resume and sample lesson plans ready. So as you're preparing for the interview, sometimes in an interview panel, not all members of the interview panel will have a resume for you. They might have the interview packet, which is the application that's done online, but not every person has the opportunity to review it. So come prepared. I also suggest, and I've seen this, and it helps with the view of you being prepared, bring a sample lesson plan, bring a classroom ecology map, bring a portfolio to show how you maybe differentiate instruction for a particular grade level, or a sample lesson that you're really proud about. Those are things that are going to give you some talking points if you have the opportunity to share, to go over your portfolio, because sometimes we get stuck and we don't know what to share. And so when you have these sample lesson plans, you're really going to shine, because this is something that you have personal knowledge of. Before you go into the interview, make sure that your cell phone is turned off. It's very embarrassing for your cell phone to be going off, whether it's a vibration or it actually goes off. It's poor form. It's disrespectful. It does not show attention to detail. And so make sure that that's turned off before you go in. I say turn it off only because sometimes you think you put it on vibrate and it didn't actually turn, the little switch didn't turn. Just turn it off. Your interview is only going to be probably 20 minutes to a half an hour, maybe up to an hour. You'll be okay. You'll be able to check your messages. You never want to be late, so prepare to be early. Sometimes when you're going to a district site, it's going to be hard to find the human resources department. Or sometimes you think it's going to be, your interview is going to be held in the human resources department, but it's actually held at a school site. So you want to make sure that you know exactly where you're going. You'll want to make sure that you might even the day before, a couple days before, drive to the site so that you know where you're going. You don't want to be late to an interview. It also shows poor preparation, lack of detail, and lack of concern. Because if you really want the job, you're going to make every effort to be there on time. You want to wear a professional outfit. Now, why do I say that? Most teachers, elementary teachers, they dress very casually because of the grade level that they teach in. And even though you might be a teacher that wears maybe a polo shirt and jeans with some nice casual shoes, that's not the place to wear that outfit for an interview. The interview needs to be, your outfit needs to be polished. You're a professional. You have a degree. This is your career. You do not want to go in looking like, it's a casual situation. It's important. That first impression is super important. So I'm not saying an Armani suit, and I'll give you some examples of what outfits would be appropriate, but be appropriate for the position. Being a teacher is a very respectful and honorable profession, and you need to convey that. You want to be confident, and so you are preparing for this interview so that you can give off that sense of confidence. You want to be personable, you want to smile, and you want to be humble. These are your first positions in the school district. And so even though you might be a graduate that's summa cum laude, you still haven't really been an actual teacher. And being a substitute teacher, being an aide in the classroom, doing student teaching, those are all important roles, but there's nothing that's going to actually prepare you for the responsibility that you will have when you have your own classroom and your own students. And so you want to make sure that you portray a sense of friendliness, humility, and that you're coachable. You don't have all the answers. None of us have all of the answers. You want to make sure that you're coming off as someone who is eager to learn. So how do you do research on a district? So I'm giving you an example of, you're researching the district organization, our district website, sbcusd.com. Another good tip when you apply for positions, EdJoin is probably the leading place where we put all of our job positions. And so you'll want to look at the advertisement for the job, you're going to look for the responsibilities of the job. And as you're looking at that, that's where you're going to start looking for being prepared for what type of questions they're going to ask you. If they're asking you specifically for, it's a high school science teacher, you need to make sure that you're aware of the next generation science standards. You need to make sure that you're aware of safety tests and how to use goggles and all that good stuff as far as how do you maintain an effective learning environment for high school students. And so you're going to want to make sure that you are looking at the essential functions of the job to develop your own interview questions. And then you're going to start thinking about how might you answer those questions. And so practice in the mirror, practice and record yourself so that you can hear the answers that you're giving. It's important because sometimes we do things that we don't think that we're doing, such as the ums, such as, okay, yeah, some of those are, and the knows. So you'll want to make sure that you're very clean in your delivery. And so a great way to do that is to record yourself so that you can hear yourself later. So as promised, I gave you some ideas as to what to wear for an interview. So this is an entry-level position as a teacher. So business casual for a gentleman, a button-up shirt with a tie, acceptable. But putting that jacket makes you look the part. You want to be confident. You want to have presence. Not having the jacket, it's okay, but you want to look your best. So ladies, you want to make sure capri pants are great for casual. Wear slacks. Don't wear short skirts. Be appropriate. I kind of think of looking like maybe attorney-ish. Sometimes as educators, we see teachers dressing very casually, but in an interview, it's a very formal opportunity for you to show your best. And so you want to dress your best. So when you think about it, think about professional dress. You're going to court. You need to wear your Sunday best. So the actual interview, right? So we talked about the pre-interview. Now we're talking about the actual interview. You're now sitting in the chair. So you want to make a great first impression. You want to walk and talk the part. For all essential purposes, when you're coming into an interview, you are a teacher. You are a psychologist. You are a counselor. And so you know all the answers because you studied for this. You've had lots of opportunities to display your competency through student teaching, through internship. So you know what's expected on the job. So you're not going to be that meek person because you got this. So you want to make sure that you give that friendly, confident, humble, personable impression. You're smiling because you're going to be somebody's teacher and you're going to make a difference in somebody's life. And so you want to make sure that whoever's hiring thinks that you are the best person to put their own child in their class. So think about that when you are going through this process. Would you want you to be your son or daughter's teacher? So you want to present well. You want to avoid negative statements. What do I mean by that? You want to keep everything in the affirmative. Oh, I would never do. Or I can't believe. Those are comments that make people maybe give that perception that the glass is half empty versus half full. And remember, in education, we're all about potential. We're all about students through the process of growth. They can accomplish great things. And so we have to have that positive mindset. And so where you might think about a situation and maybe discipline, like you might never yell at a student, you might approach that and say that statement, well, what I have found is that speaking in a tone of correction helps a student because I'm giving them opportunities to learn versus I would never yell at a kid. Well, hopefully you never would, but you want to make sure that how you answer the question is in a positive frame of mind. You want to focus on your skills and what you bring to the job. So what do I mean by that? Oftentimes, you're coming into positions, especially at a secondary level. And at the secondary level, not only do we want great teachers, but we're looking at the whole child, and we're looking for people who could also coach, because there's lots of extracurricular activities. We're also looking for teachers that have some experience in the workforce, as far as career technical skills to be able to bring to the classroom. So if you have those abilities, you want to be able to figure out how you might bring those into the conversation. If, let's say, you were on a college basketball team, and that was something that you really enjoyed, and you considered maybe being a high school basketball coach, that's a great way you can segue in on how you build relationships with students. So you'll want to make sure that you're bringing in all those positive things that you do and your skills. And it's not just about the technical skills. We're looking for soft skills. It's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. And so that's very important, because when you're dealing with students, we're looking for people who are kind but firm. And you'll want to be able to be competent but caring. So preparing for the actual interview. So you'll want to make sure that you give a great introduction, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The actual body of the interview, those would be some of the questions they're going to be asking you, and we'll talk through some of those potential questions. And then again, the conclusion. How are you going to wrap it up? You want to leave a great last impression. They may never see you again, or that's going to be the hook that you got the job. So it's very important that we kind of look at each of these pieces and how they build, and how you're going to knock it out of the park, because you've been able to look at each of these areas and develop the essential components that are needed for the interview. So potential interview questions, right? They're always going to ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Or they might phrase it on, what are some of the skills and experiences that have prepared you for this job? So this is your opportunity to talk through all the great things that you've accomplished. And what I have found in my experience is that we're really humble people as teachers, and so we really don't do a great job selling ourselves. So this is your time to brag, but in a good way. You're talking about how you are a dedicated person who graduated from these school districts, and you want to really make a difference. You're talking about your college experience, where you went to college, what your major was, with the perspective. Again, remember, teachers are not just people who deliver instruction. It's about developing relationships. And so you want to talk about what kind of people person you are. How do you connect with others through your work, right? You served on the Model United Nations Committee. You served on the panel for Azusa Pacific's School of Education Student Advisory Committee. Things like that, because as an interviewer, we're looking for people that are going to go the extra mile. We're not looking to hire people that are going to do the bare minimum, because as you know, being a vocation, it's not about just staying because of the hours. It's about really making a difference, and making a difference doesn't have a time constraint. So we want to hear that from you. We want you to respond with precision and clarity. We don't want you to go all around. Make your point. I would recommend, when we're talking about your educational background, I graduated from this campus with a bachelor's in this. I got my master's in this. I have my teaching credential in this. You want to be very clear and concise with that experience, because it's going to be short, because you want the opportunity to talk about the great things that you're going to bring as a teacher. When you answer questions, you want to make sure that you have concrete details. You want to have evidence that you've had these experiences. So you might say, when I was a student teacher, I taught this lesson. When I reflected and did an after action review with my mentor teacher, we discussed da-da-da-da. If I had to go back and do it again, I would do da-da-da-da. I tried the lesson again with another group, and I found that worked better. So you'll want to make sure that you just don't want to say, oh, it went well. How did it go well? How did you differentiate? Give some examples of that, because the proof of your competency is going to be in the details. We know the people who are just trying to get through the interview, and those are the people that are smiling and they'll tell you, oh, it's all about trust. It's not just about that. It's about having those details, because those details show us that you know what you're talking about and what you're doing. The conclusion. So as you're tying up the interview, at the very end. So of course they're going to ask you, tell us about yourself. They might ask you, how might you create an environment conducive for learning? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? You're going to go through that process, and we'll talk a little bit later about what that might look like. They might ask you, let me go back. They might ask you, how do you differentiate instruction for students who are not showing adequate progress? They might ask you, community involvement is important, as well as parent involvement in classrooms. Parents are our partners. How might you go about engaging parents so that they are more active in their child's education? Another question might be, how might you integrate technology in your lessons? With Common Core, it's all about demonstration, and it's about teacher facilitation. Tell me what a model lesson would look like. What would you be doing as a teacher, and what would students be doing within the lesson, and what were going to be some expected outcomes? What does a professional learning community look like? How might you participate with a team? Question might be, tell me about some qualities that make you a team player. Because in education, it's not about just living in your classroom. It's about collaboration. So as a teacher, you're doing a lot of collaboration. Another question might be, how do you deal with failure? Do you get down on yourself, or are you someone who sees it as a challenge as an opportunity for growth? Another question might be around classroom management. What kind of systems would you have in place in order to have an effective environment for learning, but that students are aware of their expectation? And how do you create a collaborative culture within your classroom so that students know what's expected of them? So lots of different questions. I would also think you're going to get questions around the California standards for the teaching profession. So looking at the California standards, their substandards, look at those and be able to speak to how you are going to develop those CSTPs within the lessons that you provide to students. They might ask you also about how you monitor student progress, and how do you deal with students who are at risk or at promise. So think about how you might answer those questions, because it's not just about glossing it over. Remember, it's about the details. So at the end of the interview, so you're relieved that you got through the whole thing, and you might crack a joke like, wow, you asked some pretty intense questions. It depends on what your feeling is. But you'll want to have a concluding statement. I don't necessarily recommend questions, because sometimes those questions are not appropriate. So for example, how much am I going to get paid? Or when am I going to get off for a summer break? Those are things that you should have already done your research on. So you want to close the deal. So you're going to close the deal by having a powerful closing statement. And that closing statement is what's going to think about your personal statement as a high school student, or as you were preparing your admissions and why you want to continue in education. Think about that and really think about your why. Your closing statement needs to reflect why you want to be a teacher and how your strengths are going to benefit children, especially children in this district. You want to talk about why you're interested in working in a particular school district or in a particular grade level. Understanding your why and your purpose is beneficial for you because it's going to keep you grounded, but it's also going to leave a lasting impression on the people that are doing the interview, conducting the interview. So let's say you had you were homeless growing up, and you really turned it around, and you were able to. You're now a success story, and so your why is, you know what it was to suffer, not having a place to live, or not knowing where your next meal was going to come from, or being cold at night and your stomach hurting before you went to bed. And so those memories are what drive you to make a difference in lives just of students who have that same experience, and to show them that if you can do it under the obstacles that you had, that they can do it too, and that you as their teacher can help them to have a better life, or have different conditions. And so those statements of your why and your purpose really, really make a difference. Remember, we're hiring people who want to make a difference. We're not looking for people who just want to collect a paycheck. And so having that powerful statement at the end really compels your interviewer to say, wow, this person fits or this person doesn't fit. And so you want to make sure that that hire is going to be beneficial to both you and the employer. And then you want to make sure, and sometimes we forget because we're in our haste and we're just so glad that the interview is over, you want to make sure that you thank the interviewer. Shake their hand. Thank them for the opportunity. Whether you get the job or not, it was an opportunity for you to grow in how you answer questions, in how you can develop your diction so that you can answer questions at a different level. It's important. You want to be seen as a very gracious, considerate person. So being just that gesture of thankfulness goes a long way. So you want to make sure that you thank them in person. Sometimes people will ask, should I give them a thank you card? If you have thank you cards that you did ahead of time, where it's a very generic card, you can leave a generic card. But I wouldn't go out of my way after the interview to send a thank you note. It can go either way, but in my experience, it hasn't really made a difference. Something else you need to know. So if you don't get the job, that's okay. There's plenty of jobs out there. But some districts offer an opportunity to do a debrief. And that's important because if you didn't get the job, you want to know what you can do better the next time. And so in our district, for example, we do offer an opportunity. So if, let's say, you don't get the job and you receive the decline letter, make an appointment with the HR professional that interviewed you, and ask them if you can have some feedback as far as your performance in the interview. 9.9% of the time, they'll make that appointment with you within the next few days, and you'll be able to learn from that experience. And it could just be that maybe they were looking for somebody that was bilingual, or maybe they were looking for somebody that had coaching experience, or maybe you really seemed very nervous, or maybe you wore some really flashy jewelry, and so we couldn't pay attention to what your answers were because we were just so fascinated with your 5-carat diamond ring. So little things like that will help you to grow in this process. And remember, you only need one job. And so if you interview 20 times to get one job, you only need one. So keep trying. It's not the end of the world. And you want to make sure that wherever you get to is going to be the right fit. So don't necessarily compromise, because you're going to live at work. You're going to live at work for 6 to 8 to 10 hours a day. You want to make sure it's the right place. It's going to be a healthy environment for you to thrive. So Here's a little video, just kind of talking through to keep some levity in this, answering this, tell me about yourself. So
employers want to hire the best person for the job, and your job is to convince them this is you. As it is most likely the first question you will face in your interview, it is one of the first impressions you will be giving the employer. You want to give the most professional image of yourself as possible. In order to accomplish this, do not volunteer personal information.
Please tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm 23 years old. I was born and raised in this city. I have 2 dogs, and I love basketball.
This candidate has already set himself back. You don't want to give any information about your personal life, but rather your professional life and how it relates to the position you are interviewing for. To do this successfully, you need to prepare and structure your answer highlighting your relevant education, experience, and professional qualities. From the job description, you know what the qualifications for the job are and what skills the employer is looking for. So you want to highlight all of the previous work experience, education, training, and all other professional skills that are relevant to the position. No matter what your work history is, you have transferable skills. If this is your first job in your field, then highlight the skills and training you received from your education as they pertain to the job, and talk about any transferable skills you might have gained from any of your work experience. Highlight your accomplishments as well. If you've received any academic awards or any promotions or commendations from your job, feel free to mention it. Not every position you interview for is going to be exactly the same, even if the job title is. Each company has different needs, so study the job description and figure out exactly what it is they're looking for. Once you figure out what the employer is looking for in a candidate, your job is to be that person. So emphasize the skills and qualifications you have that relate to the job specifically. Try to keep your answers in chronological order. You do not have to recap your professional history year by year, but detailing the experiences and skills that you have gained as you attain them in an organized fashion will leave a good impression on the employer. Your resume can help you with this, as it is in chronological order, and can help you set a timeline. Now that you have the structure, here is a good example.
Please tell me about yourself.
Let's see. I believe I have a very solid background in medical assisting. I earned my degree in medical assisting where I learned valuable skills such as taking vitals, administering injections, explaining treatment procedures to patients, preparing patients for examination, and assisting the physician with examinations. While earning my degree, I worked in customer service at ABC Pharmacy for 3 years as well, where I gained valuable communication skills and learned how to address customers' needs, which enables me to relate and effectively communicate with patients and their needs. I also completed an internship at a health clinic while in school, where I picked up more valuable skills, including updating patient files and medical records, handling correspondence, scheduling appointments, arranging for hospital admission, and help make sure the office ran smoothly. These are all valuable skills which I will hopefully be able to apply to this position and bring to your office.
Remember, when answering the question, tell me about yourself. Keep it professional and do not give any personal information. Highlight your skills from your relevant education and training that will help you in the position. Tell them your work history and transferable skills as it relates to the job you are interviewing for, and do so in an organized, chronological fashion.
pretty much everything that we've already said, just kind of recap there for you in that short video. So moving towards the post interview. We live in a world where everybody posts everything. They post what they ate for breakfast, where they went for lunch. It's not a good idea to post on your social media about your interview, specific about where it was. If you want to post that you just had an interview, awesome. But you want to be very careful not to post the locations. So sometimes if something doesn't go well, or let's say a friend of yours posts and says, I will never work there, it ends up being part of the strand of that district's social media. So post, but don't make references to the school district in which you interviewed with. Again, be gracious. You're going to stay positive. You really want that job. Have faith. You'll get it. And if not this one, you're going to get a job. So be patient, be thankful and gracious. something that's very important that we don't think about. The world of education is small. So we belong to many professional organizations, and it's kind of like the 6 degrees of separation. I may not work in Colton, but I know the superintendent very well. I may not work in Victorville, but I know people that work there. I know people that work in Coachella. I know people that work in Los Angeles. Know people that work in Elk Grove. So if I don't have a positive experience with you, and let's say you came off very rude or disrespectful or unprepared, and somebody knows somebody else, and they might say, "Oh, do you know this person? Oh, yeah, this person interviewed." There's not a whole lot of confidentiality when you don't get an interview, but just know you always want to leave a great impression. You always want to have people say, "You know what? She didn't get the job, but that person was really kind." Maybe there wasn't an opportunity now, but we're going to see if we can get that person in this organization because they're the right fit. So they can consider you for another position. Or if, let's say, I know that my sister district, Rialto, is looking for a science teacher, I might call and say, "Hey, I have a great candidate. We weren't able to hire him, but it might be a good fit for you." So always, always, always make sure that you are kind, you're gracious, and you're positive. You never want to say anything poor about any potential employer. It's kind of like the negative magnet. Things always come back to you. Okay, so before we kind of close for questions, this is something that you want to do yourself. Think about, you want to make 3 points of awareness. When you're thinking about your interview, what are 3 things that you want to make sure that the interview knows about you? So let's take a couple of minutes to kind of think through, you're running through your head what your interview might look like, looking at these potential questions or your experience. What is it that you want the interviews to know about you? Pick 3 things. And then you want to think about your personality traits, because it's professional and personal characteristics that prepare you for these types of positions. So what is it that you want to portray in the interview? Do you want to portray you're a team builder, that you're a servant leader, that you're caring and considerate, that you're driven, that you show initiative? What is it that you want to convey with your behavior and your answers to show that you are, someone who can make a difference? And then, kind of as a final thought, one thoughtful question or comment that you want to leave the interview panel with. So sometimes when you're in an interview, there might be something that's really important to you because you're very passionate about career pathways in elementary school. So a thoughtful question might be around that, because you want to show your passion about how you might be able to weave in these contacts you made throughout your college years, or through an experience that you had working with the Peace Corps. So asking that question might help to pique more interest in you. And also think about that comment, that final comment, that you want to leave that final impression with that interview panel. So let's take a couple of minutes and think about that for yourselves. So that's a strategy think time. Probably give you a little bit longer, but we want to make sure that we are on time with our presentation. So utilize those things that you reflect on to see how you can make your interview better.
I have a quick question about different types of interviewing styles, structural, behavioral. I was wondering if you could talk about kind of what format your district uses, and maybe what are the differences between the different type of interview styles, just so that they can kind of be prepared.
Sure. So our district, because of the volume, we hire more than 300 teachers every summer. So, because I think we're now the 9th largest school district in the state of California with over 2,500 teachers. We need to be able to have quick turnover as far as interview in that process. So typically our interview the structure is going to be very traditional in the sense of you're going to be sitting with the human resources director, possibly a principal, and asking questions about similar to what I mentioned earlier. Tell me about yourself. Tell me what your room environment would look like. Here's a scenario for a student that's maybe not on task or a student who is not showing adequate academic progress. What would you do? Talk me through that process. So in our district is very traditional. In some districts, they're a little bit more behavior or performance based. They might ask you to deliver a lesson and they observe you delivering the lesson. They might ask you to put together a PowerPoint and talk through, they might give you a topic and you run with it. When we're looking at the behavioral type of interview, and I don't really have a lot of experience with that, as I mentioned, we do more of the traditional sense. They're really looking for, how do you perform under pressure? Remember, you're becoming a teacher, and so students do things that we're not always prepared for, and we always make a joke that, there wasn't a class on this, especially when you're dealing with students who have behavior issues and a lot of home issues. And so the behavioral type is looking for what would you do, and kind of your thought process behind it. Your logic and how do you use resources. So that would be my answer. But in our school district, as I mentioned, because of the volume of teachers, we're not doing much of that. Also in our district, just for people's information, another good way to get into a district is to be a substitute teacher. So in our district, we have between 500 and 600 vacancies a day due to illness or professional development. And so there are opportunities for you to work at different schools, meet different teachers, meet different administrators to get those letters of recommendation. And so in our school district, if you are a graduate from one of our high schools, we offer tuition reimbursement for substitute teachers. And so we also offer contracts. That's usually our pool where we get our teachers from, because we know that they've done a good job. They know our students, and we know their performance and how they're going to perform. So it's a good opportunity for you to get your foot in the door.
Great, thank you. We do have a question that was submitted, and this is from Viviana, who asked, when a district is asking for 3 current supervisor emails, can I use professor emails since I'm not working at the time?
Yes, you'll want to get anybody that's aware of your job performance. Now, if, for example, you are working but not in the educational field, let's say you're working in retail as you're paying for your college education, you can get a letter from your supervisor that talks about what kind of person you are, what kind of soft skills. You deliver results by meeting deadlines. You're very personable. You have great customer service. So even if you're not in the field per se, having those references are important. Sometimes when we just get professors, it's a red flag, because your professors sometimes only see one facet of you. We want to know that you're building relationships out in the field. So when you're doing your student teaching, be mindful of that, because your goal is to have a positive interaction with an administrator or a teacher in the hope that they're going to be able to vouch for you. So yes, you can get professors. It shouldn't be all 3 of them. It needs to be varied.
That's helpful. Thank you. Another question is, if you have a credential in one subject and plan to get cleared in another subject in the near future, would you mention that?
Yes, and that's a great way to get your foot in the door. So we're always looking for, I know as I was a high school principal, for duly credentialed teachers. Teachers who could teach math and science, bio and chem, Spanish and math. Because believe it or not, there's a lot of programs that require that crossover. If you have a BCLAD, so that you can teach in another language, that's a very strong way to set you apart from everyone else. So even if you don't yet have that credential, but you know that you're getting it in the near future, let them know, because it will make a difference. Great question.
Sandra, I wanted to ask if you could kind of talk about the benefits of working for your district, because as we've talked over the years, I've just learned about so much support that your district provides. And so can you share that with our candidates?
Sure. So being one of the larger school districts in the state of California, and we're really about being innovators and leaders. We're really proud about the accomplishments of our teachers and our students. So one of the things that we really are proud of in our district is our Common Core demo teachers. And so that's a resource that new teachers and veteran teachers have, where they can go and shadow a Common Core demo teacher. We actually have a channel on YouTube where we showcase our Common Core demo teachers, and you can even send them a message. If you're not part of our school district, you can still send them a message and ask them questions about lessons, or if you have a concern and you want to be coached, that's something that we offer to everyone. Within our new employee orientation, anytime we have a new hire, all of our teachers get technology. So we provide them with an iPad with all of their TEs and also resources. Our standard classrooms now all have some type of interactive technology, whether it's a projector or smart boards, or smart TVs. That's pretty much the industry standard now in our district. We also offer teacher induction, and we're also very proud that we are able to clear administrative credentials through AXA, and we actually have in-district coaches that have kind of an embedded program where you're not having to go outside to go take additional coursework to be able to clear a credential. So that's another great thing. Our school district is very diverse, and we serve a population of about 51,000 students in the cities of San Bernardino and Highland. And so within the last 7 years, we've worked to build career pathways in our schools, including our elementary schools. And so one of the great things that we were able to do within the last couple of weeks is we hosted a diversity tour for Azusa Pacific faculty and also graduate students. And we were able to showcase some of the great things that were happening at some of our campuses. Specifically, we went to one of our middle schools. And so we had in our library, it's called a maker space. And so basically, we're teaching kids to kind of think that sky's the limit. And we actually had students in that classroom, in that library, that were learning how to fix technology. So we have one-to-one technology in some of our schools, meaning that all of our students have either an iPad, a Chromebook, or a laptop that they're able to use in the classrooms. And so some of these students also get to take it home. And so in that process, sometimes they get damaged. And so we have students who are actually fixing this technology for us, which we're really proud about. We have 3D printers in our elementary schools and high schools, middle schools, to really showcase STEM. We have wonderful partnerships with community organizations that provide for some of our basic needs for students. We have at the high school that I was a principal, we had dual immersion programs where students were learning content in math, social studies, and science in Spanish, along with getting a certification in translation, interpretation, for them to be able to get a job. We have culinary arts, we have auto, technology, logistics, culinary arts, teachers for the dream, sustainable living, hospitality, nursing, lots of different pathways within our schools. And those pathways are not just limited to high schools. And so we have been building career components at our elementary schools so that we can expose students so they can understand that education is important and how it relates to their jobs in their future.
I see that one person unmuted themselves, so I do want to give an opportunity just to ask a question.
Great.
Yeah, it was just a quick question. I know you had mentioned to kind of note if you are bilingual. What if you're sufficient? Like, you understand it and you can speak it to a point, but you're not like fully immersed. So, I mean, would you mention that as well, or?
Yes, I would. So your level is conversational. So what's great about that is even though you may not be able to teach in Spanish or this other language, you're able to communicate with parents and also students. So it's a very valuable skill set to have. If you're not fluent, meaning you cannot read, write basically, because you can speak and understand, that's okay.
Well, if you can, what about if you can read? Like, you can read it, but not like how you would normally read like a regular book, I guess. Yeah.
I would still say share it. If you can read it, we're not looking for 1 minute. If you can read information in another language, if you can speak and communicate,
Okay.
those are great skills to have, and will give you a leg up. As you know, in California, we serve a very diverse student population. In our school district, we have 70% of our students are Latino, and of those 70%, about 34% are Spanish speaking. And so we do have probably over 100 languages served: Vietnamese, Hmong. We teach Mandarin, Arabic. So if you have the skill set to speak and read, share it. It's great.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Just another kind of filler.
Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned earlier, substitute teaching is a great way to get your foot in the door. There's also other types of positions that you can work in a school district. So if, let's say, you're working, you want to work in a school and you want to be a tutor for a little bit. There's lots of classified positions that, let's say you still don't have your teaching credential yet, you can still work in education while you're honing your skills. I think it's great when you have people that kind of go through the ranks because they're familiar with the student population, they're familiar with systems and practices. Those people tend to be a little bit more successful than someone who is a transplant from out of the area. And so take advantage of different types of positions within a school district. There's also lots of benefits. If, let's say, you are a classified employee, some school districts offer tuition reimbursement to pay for school. And sometimes they match up to 75% of your cost. And so that's a great way to work. They also have agreements for tuition discounts. So like in our school districts, our employees receive, I think it's 10%, right, Nori, of
Yes.
discount. So it's a little bit, but it makes a difference. And those are just perks when you work for a school district. So consider all types of jobs when you are thinking about entering the field.
Sandra, thank you for just sharing your expertise with us. And we really appreciate you and your partnership and your time this evening. Thank you
for the opportunity.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us.